Good morning, everybody. And good morning to my guest today, Phil Smith.
Good morning.
Phil, it's so great to have you here. For those of you that haven't had the joy of meeting Phil Smith, I've met him now in at least two different contexts, but he is someone that has been around the block for a long time in the cleaning industry.
In the nicest possible way.
Yes. So I first met Phil at the Make London a Living Wage City event, or not event, committee, which was headed up by Citizens UK and London Living Wage. And Phil has been a really strong and important voice as part of that committee. I was fairly late to the party there, Phil, so you guys had done all the heavy lifting, I think, by the time I rocked up into that. There was that. But the most fascinating way that I've met you, Phil, was at the Worshipful Company for Environmental Cleaners. And Phil, the whole thing has just been a mind-blowing, wonderful space that I have discovered and continue to discover for the industry. If you don't know about it, and hopefully we'll touch on that, I would definitely recommend that you get involved, that you connect. And for those of you that are trades in all sorts of other places, have a look at your worshipful companies, because the whole thing is amazing. So Phil Smith, drum roll, welcome to Clean Conscience.
That was a big introduction. Thank you very much indeed.
I think you deserved one. It felt like you needed one.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Antoinette.
Thank you. I hope it still is at the end. Let's get going. So Phil, I kind of want you to start at the beginning, if you could, and just share with us what role networking has played in your own journey through the cleaning industry, but any other industry that you've been part of as well.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you. I suppose it's been kind of like a golden thread throughout my entire career. And it's something that I don't think I really realized that I was doing until I got involved in the cleaning industry. And I moved down from Yorkshire down to London at the beginning of 2009. So I've been here about 15, 16 years. And making that move to dare I say it, a foreign country. London was a big kind of unknown territory for me. I found that I was kind of on my own, with the exception of the small group of people that I was working with, and the networks that you forge within the company that you're operating with. I didn't really know anybody else outside of that. So a friend of mine at work introduced me to somebody else. I then met somebody online on LinkedIn. Turned out those two people were connected, and together they invited me along to the Worshipful Company of Environmental Cleaners. And it was at that point, I suppose, even though the Environmental Cleaners does not refer to itself as a network, that was my first foray into actually networking with people and growing connections. And I found from a really almost from the beginning that these were people that I built a friendship with first, and then lo and behold, happened to be able to do some business with them afterwards, or actually was able to turn to them for advice. So I met people across the industry from all sorts of different sectors, all sorts of different disciplines, from suppliers to operators to specialist insurance companies to specialist recruiters, the whole lot. So that was really what inspired myself and my fellow founders to create the Hill Club, to create a space like that, to offer a similar connection. So in short, it's been a crucial part of my business life.
That's really comprehensive. And what I loved about what you said is that you made friends first, and that business was almost secondary on the agenda.
Absolutely.
But a natural outpouring of that friendship.
I think there's that old saying, isn't it, that people do business with people, but they also do business with people they like. And the only way they're going to like you is by finding out about you in the first place, and you likewise finding out about them.
Agreed. I might talk a little bit later on about like what I've started to do, but I think that this whole reframing of networking in my mind has been quite integral to who I am and how I move about my business life as well. But this is about you, not me. So let's keep going. So you mentioned the Worshipful company of environmental cleaners, and you mentioned the Hill Club.
Yeah.
They're two very distinct communities. So tell us a little bit about them. What's different, what's distinctive about them, and what unites them?
Well, they might look very different on the surface, and I mean, let's face it, when you go to a Worshipful Company event, there's nothing that is going to look quite like that, because it's pretty spectacular.
Yes.
But I think both organisations, in their own way, exist to raise standards and just basically celebrate the people in the industry. I think the Hill Club, on the one hand, is a very open, informal, more social kind of thing. It's free to join. It's deliberately inclusive. There's no kind of barriers to entry from a cost perspective, because people can pay 20 quid, come along to one of our events, job done. It's open to the people I mentioned before, whether you're a frontline operative, whether you're a specialist recruiter, whether you're an environmental campaigner, whether you're the Living Wage Foundation, for example, that come to all of our Hill Club events. It's very, very open, no barriers at all. Worshipful Company, on the other hand, has centuries of tradition behind it. I mean, literally, the livery movement goes back almost 1,000 years within the City of London. And as you hinted earlier on, it represents all of the great trades, the mercers, the haberdashers, the grocers, trades like that, all the way through the centuries. And I think that there's also a ceremonial side to the Worshipful Company as well, which is wonderful to be involved in and spectacular to behold.
It really is.
I'm so glad you had a positive experience from it, Antoinette, because it's a bit of a hidden gem, I think, within our industry. If you stretch outside of London and outside of countries that operate, companies that operate in London, it's very it's almost an unknown. So stretching the reach is something that we're very keen to do. But I think what unites the two organisations really is the shared purpose of raising standards, celebrating people, and showing the value of the industry. I should also point out as well that the Worshipful Company has it operates the industry's charity fund. So it is making charity grants and donations to deserving causes, connected with the industry or connected with associations of the industry. And also it holds the Chartered Practitioner Register. So for the first time, this has been running for about 3 years now, the first time ever, people who are professionals within the cleaning industry can be recognised for that professionalism, for their experience, and actually become a chartered environmental cleaner with the same status as a chartered surveyor, a chartered accountant, and so on.
Oh, I didn't know that. Didn't know
you
that.
Go. You do now.
Every day is full day.
Who's listening?
Yes. Oh, you said something in there. My menopausal brain has lost it. Gone. It's gone. So it may come back. But tell us, what does good networking look like to you? And perhaps what are the things that people often get wrong when they approach networking?
Well, that's a great question. I think if you go to a networking event armed with 400 business cards and a T-shirt that says "Buy from me," you're not going to succeed. I think the people that succeed and the way that I would encourage people to be at a networking event is to be very open, very transparent. My dear old dad taught me once upon a time that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you speak. Ask open questions and learn about the person that you're speaking with, because that's the way that you build a friendship. Try to keep it on a social footing within the networking event, and do your business afterwards. Have a follow-up phone call, but keep it just generally people connecting with people. Have a laugh, have a joke, share some common themes, and make friends. And I think that the people that I've seen coming through the Hill Club in particular that have done that, it's really, really worked for them. Really worked. And that's from people coming along either as part of a group or coming on as an individual for the first time. It really has succeeded. So I think it's, I suppose it's kind of just having that feeling of collaboration, wanting to give somebody something just as much as you want them to give you something in return.
That's really valuable advice. I've been in business now for 13 years, and networking is the thing that makes me want to cry and rock in a corner, covering my eyes. Yeah. Also, I thought until with my business coach about 3 years ago, I was able to reframe it like this. And because he just couldn't get his head around it. Anybody that meets me is like, but you're a natural networker.
Absolutely. I would agree with him.
But because I was going into it with the mindset of I've got to be like everyone else, I've got to monologue, I've got to sell. If I leave without having sold, then that's a failure of an event. But once I understood, I just get to go make friends. That's really cool. It's really transformed.
I had a good friend of mine years ago when we started the Hill Club. The Hill Club's been running for 10 years now, and this was in the first, probably the first couple of years. And he came along. He's based on the South Coast, so he doesn't travel into London very often. But he'd made the trip up, or maybe he was up for some other reason, and the Hill Club just happened to be on. But he came along and he said, I don't really know anybody. So I introduced him to a couple of people. And then I just kept looking over at him throughout the evening, and he was deep in conversation. And at the end of it, he said, I didn't really do anything other than just chat about who I was and what I did. But he said, look, I've got a list of people who actually want me to quote for work that they need doing that I can help them with. So I said, it's been such a worthwhile event for me to come along and do this, because, my travel costs from coming up from the South Coast to London, more than covered by the opportunity that I'm going to get from this.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant.
But he didn't try. As I say, he didn't go in there. Here's my business card. This is who I am. This is what we can do for you. There was none of that hard sell. Yeah.
And I think that will be quite a relief to anyone listening into this, either live or on replay. So actually, if this is the first time that you're hearing that, I hope that you can breathe a sigh of relief and realize that this is all about, even if you go and have just one significant conversation with someone, but that becomes a relationship that you can move forwards. That's the win, not necessarily the day. Brill. So for cleaning business owners who maybe feel too small or too stretched to network, I don't know if you have ever remembered those days where you're so busy in the work that you doing anything besides that feels challenging. What would you say to encourage them to take that first step?
Well, I'd be surprised if anybody running a business ever has a day where they struggle to fit everything in. I certainly don't. I think that it's a little bit, there's two analogies here, Antoinette. It's almost a bit like, when people make an excuse for not going to the gym, or haven't got time, I can't fit it into the schedule. Yes, you can. You fit it into the schedule, you go and do it, and remarkably, you still have time to do all the other things that you do. So don't have it as an excuse. And I think also a little bit like couples waiting to for the right moment to have a child and start a family. There never will be a right moment. So just to a degree, you'll never feel like you've got enough time. You'll never feel that your business is big enough. Sometimes you just got to trust your instinct and go with it. And I think there are lots of networks, lots of great networks out there that, as well as the Hill Clubs. There's This Week in FM do a great monthly networking event, FM Connect, who are all over the UK. The Doyle Club, probably the daddy of FM networking. The CSSA has its own North and South communities. So there are many, many great organizations that you can plug into. And I think, again, going back to the gym analogy, once you've done it for the first time, once you've made that choice, I'm going to go every Tuesday, or in my case, every Tuesday in May, then, once you've made that choice, it becomes easy to do. And once you're on the networking cycle, if you like, it becomes part of your business fabric.
I really love that. Again, so hard when you're in the middle of it. I like that analogy of deciding to have a child. There's never a good time. You've just got to bite the bullet and do it. You're so right. Networking is exactly like that.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
One of the things that I started doing, again, I was in a mastermind, and we had a guest speaker, and he talked about having 100 one-to-one coffees with a variety of random people, but people beget people. And so I'm quite introverted, believe it or not. So for me, that has been, I have absolutely loved that. And they can be virtual. He said best in person, but that's kind of a really soft way of going through somewhere like LinkedIn or in your local network. And each conversation opens the door potentially to another conversation with someone else. So that could be another way of
Well, it
trying
is.
that.
I mean, nobody. There's no specific definition of how big or small a network can be. If you're on your own, you're not in a network. If you're sitting next to somebody else having a chat, you're in a network.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I totally agree.
Let's move on. So we've seen a massive shift for us that we're still trying to understand since I call it the trifecta of Brexit, COVID, and the cost of living. Do you think that there's been any change in the cleaning industry's culture around connection and collaboration since those three?
Yeah, I do, and I mean, I think collaboration is the key word there. It's almost become essential to collaborate now, not optional. And I think that 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, people tended to stay in their own lane and do their own thing. And this is what I do. And these are my clients and these are my suppliers. And I'm not going to tell anybody else about this.
Yeah.
All to me and kind of protect it.
Yeah.
And then I think particularly Brexit started to put pressures on organizations and pressures that perhaps meant that people were struggling in that kind of isolated capsule, if you like, to get some advice and sound direction and strategy as to where they should go and how they should navigate the Brexit waters. And I think that caused people to, tear the wall down a little bit and actually have a conversation with your neighbour and say, listen, John, how are you getting around this? How are you working this? I think COVID undoubtedly, COVID did wonderful things for the cleaning industry. It elevated our cleaning workforce right up to the highest level. Because obviously, and you and I discussed this before, we all applauded the great work that the NHS did, but those within the know knew that those NHS professionals couldn't have even gone anywhere near the hospitals and the doctor's surgeries if the cleaners hadn't been in there first. And I think that what COVID did as well, to go back to the essence of your question, is you had that situation where PPE was in short supply, hand sanitizer you couldn't find for love nor money. But the cleaning industry as a whole and the janitorial fraternity, if you want to call them that, rallied together and said, listen, I can lend you some face masks. I've got some gloves spare. What size do you need? There was a real kind of joined up commitment that we were one. We were one team doing a fantastic job. And I think that, there was all sorts of impacts, supply chains tightening, labor markets shifted, the whole lot. But we really did come together en masse and as a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that we're a bit further down the line from it all.
And long may it continue. I think there were lots of things, lots of positives to come out of COVID. I mean, obviously, not wishing to gloss over the massive negatives that came out of it, but lots of positives. And I think that we as an industry need to really, really work hard to make sure that cleaning and hygiene and environmental processes remain in the public consciousness.
Amen to that, Phil. So one of the things I love about you, Phil, there's many things, but you're a passionate living wage advocate. How do you think that networking can also help to amplify our values as well as our visibility?
Well, that's another great question. And just to precede my answer, I've been involved with the living wage campaign since the beginning. I was fortunate enough to be the co-author of the Recognised Service Provider Agreement, which is still in place today. And I was, at the time, I was commercial director with Facilicon, and we were one of the first companies to become a recognised service provider. First 5, in fact. And I think that I remember at the time, there were 4 of us that were ready to go and ready to become a recognised service provider. And we needed to wait for 1 more to come on board, which was ISS, which was obviously a huge organisation to be involved in that. And the whole reason behind that was because we wanted to magnify and amplify the network. That's 5. Was, I don't know whether you saw 5 fingers anyway, where 5 organisations just wouldn't be enough to sustain the growth that the living wage movement needed to have. But if we had 5 and they each in turn introduced other companies, that would then grow that network. So I think that the living wage, obviously it's an amazing way of spreading values like respect and fairness and rewarding everybody that does a hard day's work with fair pay. And I think that having a network, and we've done this very successfully with the Hill Club, where we've invited an open door to the Living Wage Foundation itself to come along and talk at our events, to be at our events, to meet people at our events. I think that's really helped to grow awareness of such an essential social tool.
Brilliant. I hadn't realised. So this is just another fangirl mark in the Phil Smith checkbox.
Yeah, I mean, the background to that, Antoinette, is that I was introduced by a chap called Guy Stallard from KPMG, who at KPMG were a big mover in the early days and still are with the whole Living Wage Foundation and the Citizens UK. And Guy introduced me to the then director of the Living Wage Foundation, Rhys Moore. And Rhys and I sat and had a conversation in Victoria Station over coffee, and we talked about the whole principle of being a living wage employer. And I said to him, Rhys, this just isn't going to work in our sector, because 95% of our directly employed colleagues are working on somebody else's contract and are beholden to whatever that client is prepared to pay for that contract to be delivered. So whilst undoubtedly every single cleaning contractor out there is committed to and supports the principles of the living wage, we can't 100% pay everybody the real living wage. It's impossible to do so. So this was kind of a mechanism for being able to engage people and get them on that journey. And it's been really gratifying to see that over the last 3 or 4 years in particular, there have actually been recognised service provider companies that have made that transition to becoming a living wage employer, because they've tipped over from being 95, 96% to actually achieving 100%, which is brilliant.
It is brilliant. I must admit, when I first heard of the recognised service provider, I kind of thought, oh, this is a cop-out. But actually watching it over the last decade or so and seeing how it has shifted and changed culture within the FM community, actually, you guys are right. The early pioneers were right.
One of the commitments that somebody makes as becoming a recognised service provider is that you have to have that conversation with your client. You have to, when you submit a cost for something, you have to put in that living wage alternative. So it's just promoting and prompting the conversations to be had. And you know, it has been a success. It can always be more successful.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. There's anybody listening out there that isn't, then that now is the time.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you think there's a role for networks like the Hill Club to play in supporting things like mental health or belonging or resilience for business leaders, all things that we struggle with?
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't just say that that's anything to do. It's not just exclusive to the Hill Club. It's not just exclusive to networking organisations per se. I think a network has incredible power with supporting people, whether it's a community network, a church network, a squash club, a cricket team, whatever. That has a tremendous impact on giving people a sense of belonging. And I think in terms of the cleaning and the FM industry, sometimes being the founder of a company or being a leader in your own particular operational sphere can be quite a lonely existence.
Yeah.
You're so busy firefighting, doing this, doing that, doing the other. You don't have a chance to actually sit back and think about your own well-being and your own development in your own strategic direction. So I think definitely leadership can be lonely. And I think with the Hill Club and definitely with the Worshipful Company of Environmental Cleaners, I've plugged myself into people who I now, are, even though they don't know it, are probably giving me free mentorship. Because if I have a problem, if there's some challenge that I haven't encountered before, I know there are half a dozen people I can turn to and say, what do I do here? So in terms of resilience, I think it's made me feel that I've got all of the tools in my toolbox to be able to tackle any challenge that I've got coming at me, because I'm surrounded by this group of people who have kind of got my back. And I hope that everybody who's involved in our networks feels exactly the same way.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. You're creating a new convert, by the way, to come to the Hill Club. I'm on my way.
Well, we're planning one. It should be October time, I think, end of October, beginning of November. So we should you should be getting an invite. Don't you worry about that.
So just as we kind of take this home, if someone watching wants to take one small action towards building better connections, is there anything that you could recommend that they do, like this week or even next week?
Yes, and it kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier on about connecting with somebody for a coffee. I mean, everybody's got somebody out there that they kind of admire, or they want to know more about, or they've seen a post that really resonated with them on LinkedIn or on Facebook or wherever. Just reach out and say, look, could we have a chat? Could I bump into you for coffee one day? Could we just, could you tell me a bit more about what you do? I mean, you very kindly introduced me to Janet Nash, and Janet and I then had a follow-up meeting, and I learned so much about Janet and about the sector of our industry that she works in that I would never have known about. So I think if there's something there that sparks your interest, don't be afraid to just drop a note to somebody and say, hey, could we grab a coffee? I'm in London next week, or I'm in Bolton or Manchester or wherever. Could we grab some time together? And I think it'd be a very strange person to say, no, I'm not interested. Mostly, I think everybody's fearful of rejection. But I think I know for a fact if somebody reached out to me and offered me a coffee, I would go anywhere for a latte.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? People kind of often shy away from approaching the heroes or people that they think are complete strangers. But actually, we're all business owners. We're all in the same boat. We'd all value connection and a coffee, as you say. So be brave, have a go. The worst they can say is no.
I was fortunate. I was at the cleaning show, and for some reason or other, I ended up I think they were having some road works done at the Excel, and I ended up parking my car. Literally, I felt like I'd parked in Stratford. I was so far away. And anyway, as luck would have it, I had parked in the same car park as Doug Cook from Principal Cleaning Services. And Doug and I have known each other for a long time, but I've never really had a chance to actually spend time with Doug. But we were in the same car park together. We had a 15-20 minute walk into the Excel together. And I learned so much in that 15-20 minutes from talking to somebody with just oodles of experience and advice and insight, as well as being a pretty nice bloke as well. So I think that to encapsulate those, to capture those little 15-minute opportunities, absolutely vital. You never know when it could be a game-changing conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's the advice. Find someone, have a coffee. You never know where it'll lead.
Very true. Very true.
So, speaking of Janet, we're at that point where we introduce the final question of the talk, of the chat, and it's a mystery question from the previous host. Because it's Janet and it's who she is, her brain is wonderful and diverse.
I'm terrified.
Here it is. I'm going to have to read it because this is the most detailed question we've had. So, Janet confessed to having a whole load of weird superpowers, one of which I actually thought was very useful, is being able to walk into a room and see microscopic mess. Great for a biohazard cleaner, I would guess.
Yeah.
But her question to you, Phil, is what is one of yours that you think is maybe fun or weird, but doesn't really serve any purpose to your business?
Wow. Thanks, Janet. I hope you watched it. Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm a bit of a fruit and veg geek.
Oh. Tell
I
me
was
more.
For many years in a previous life, almost certainly a previous career. I was a specialist in exotic fruit and vegetables, and I imported it from all corners of the world and supplied it into the UK supermarkets. Wow. So I actually remember when aubergines, would you believe, were classed as an exotic vegetable, and you could only get them from Kenya.
No.
Seriously. Yeah, it's remarkable. So I'm a bit of a fruit and veg geek, and shopping and eating with me can and invariably does kind of include a brief that I think a really interesting explanation of where it comes from, why it's called that, who were the big importers, how they measure them, all sorts of different things, the different names that they're known as. So actually thinking about it, it's actually remarkable I've got a network at all, or a family,
yes.
or any friends.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know whether that would class as a special power, but yeah,
that is brilliant.
And of absolutely no use to anybody whatsoever. But,
I almost want to have a meal with you, Phil, just to actually tap into that. Oh, that's
be careful what you ask for.
It's true. Yeah. You heard it here first. Phil, it's been so delightful getting a snippet of your mind and your brain. Where can people connect in with the Hill Club or the Worshipful community, or even you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and I do a lot of connections on LinkedIn. That's usually a good place to be able to find me, and also to learn a bit about what I do, and likewise for me to learn a bit about what other people do as well. So that's usually a good place to start. The Hill Club, you can find us online at thehillclub.co.uk. Is our website. You'll find information there about forthcoming events. As I say, happy to receive connections, happy to talk to people about anything I can potentially help with.
Amazing. And a latte is his drink of choice, people. So
absolutely, yes.
Lead with that. Brilliant. Have a great day. And to anyone listening, have a great day. Get in touch with either of us if you'd want to continue this conversation. It's been absolutely delightful.
Thanks for having me, Antoinette. I've really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. Bye.